Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to make a quick video on one perspective drawing. Kind of just take a step back, go back to some of the basics and really nail down those fundamentals. So in this video I'm going to start with a quick sketch, then I'm going to walk through that with a bit of explanation. I'm going to probably draw a couple more quick examples, and then I'm going to end this video with a time lapse of probably a street view drawing. And maybe that time lapse is something that you want to follow along with and draw yourself. Now today I'm going to be using my iPad and my Apple Pencil to draw, but really all you need is a pencil and paper to follow along. So with that, enough talking, let's get to drawing. So the app that I'm going to be using to draw today is called Procreate. You may have heard of it. It's kind of one of the better apps in the App Store that everybody seems to be using. So I'm going to just start a new sketch here. And like I said, start with that first example, so hang tight. Alright, so I've drawn this first example using the one perspective drawing method, but what does that mean? And I'll throw a quote on the screen, but one perspective drawing is a method that shows how things appear to get smaller as they get further away, converging towards one single vanishing point on the horizon line. It's a way of drawing objects on a flat piece of paper or other drawing surface, an iPad, so that they look three-dimensional and more realistic. So if we zoom in on the square, we can start to dissect it. So if you remember, first I drew this horizontal line right here, and that is the horizon line. Next, I drew this one point on the horizon line, and that's going to be what is called the vanishing point. That's the single point in what's deemed the one-point perspective. And this can really that point can end up anywhere on the horizon line. If we look at it here, I ended up drawing it pretty close to the center. So once we have the horizon line drawn and we have the one vanishing point for a one-point perspective, we can start by just drawing a simple square. If you remember, I drew this first square right here. Once that first square was drawn, I used lines to go from each of the corners of that first square and trace them back to that single vanishing point. All four of them go back to that vanishing point. These lines right here start to give this first square some volume. Once we have these lines, and these are called converging lines because they all converge back onto one single point. Once we have those lines drawn, we can start to add the back surface, which, if you can think about it this way, it's basically taking this first square, copying it, and then just moving it back across one of these lines. So all this back surface is just a slightly smaller version of this first square. So I went ahead and I drew the second surface in there, this back surface in there. And then once that back surface was in there, I can start to come back here and darken some of these converging lines that connect this front square with this back square. So for instance, this line connects both the front and the back square. This line connects the front and the back square. Same here and same here. The reason I didn't darken this one is because technically this line, and this line are all, on the back side of it. But right now we're kind of looking at like an X-ray view of this cube. So that's why you kind of see those lines going through there. And then I added just a little bit of color just to kind of make each one of those surfaces pop in a different way. And if you really kind of wanted to clean this up, you can come back here with the eraser and just start to erase some of these converging lines, like so. I like to leave my lines overlap a little bit. It just kind of adds to that more of an architectural sketchy look, I think. And also you may have noticed that when I was drawing, it's kind of nice in Procreate, especially when you're first starting out drawing, or if you are drawing something a little bit more technical and you want all your lines to be perfectly straight. In Procreate, you can start a line and sketch it out like that and just hold it at the end, and then it's automatically going to make it straight. And once you have that, you keep holding down, and you can shorten it, you can make the line do just about anything, go any direction like that. So that's what I was using when I was first sketching out this cube. Like I said, it's really nice when you're just starting out, or if you're really working on something technical and you need those lines nice and crisp and straight. So now I'm gonna zoom back out and let's create a couple more of these guys. So I'm gonna start here, just got a simple studio pen brush selected, and let's do a little bit more elongated shape. So I'm gonna come down here, I'm gonna still use the really straight lines that Procreate allows me to do. So right now I'm drawing that first surface. In this case, it's going to be a rectangle. So now that I've got this rectangle drawn, I'm going to come back and I'm going to start to draw the converging lines. Those are going to connect, remember, from the vanishing point to each one of the corners of that rectangle. So I'm just going to bring down the opacity a little bit. I like to do that just to kind of symbolize different lines. So start there, hold it, overlap. You can see that Procreate can be very forgiving with this straight line. I'll demonstrate. So now that we got those converging lines drawn, I'm going to bring up the opacity a little bit, and I'm going to draw the same rectangle, remember, copied and then pushed back, and it's going to end up being a little bit smaller but along these converging lines. So I'm going to start in this case with another horizontal line. And this back surface really gives the entire volume the depth. So if I wanted to make this a little bit shallower of a shape, I'm gonna bring this horizontal line closer. If I wanted it to be a lot, if I wanted more depth to it, I'll just bring it back closer to the vanishing point. Now I got that horizontal line, I'm gonna copy this line back here. I'm going to copy this vertical line back here. I'm going to copy this horizontal line back here. And notice that each one of these, they intersect at that converging line for each one of these corners. Now we got the opacity is still up. I'm going to start to connect this front surface with this back surface. And again, just to kind of demonstrate a little bit more depth, I'm gonna come in here and actually I'm gonna copy that color, I'm gonna drop it in there. So I'm just filling in this front surface here, and then it's gonna be, a little bit lighter on the top. So let's make that almost white. We'll drop that in here. So let's do one more quick example, but this time just a tad bit more challenging. So let's come up here in this upper left corner and draw something. All right, so we got this T shape. So instead of just something a little bit more simple like a cube, we're gonna try to add some depth to this T shape. So let's bring down the opacity a little bit. And again, all we're gonna do is we're just gonna connect each one of these corners to that vanishing point. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we got those converging lines drawn. You may have noticed that I turned down the opacity even a little bit more on this corner and this corner, the lines coming from those two corners. And that's just because those two corners are gonna be kind of blocked behind the shape once we're all done with this. And we're really not gonna draw too much from those two lines. So let's bring up the opacity again. And we're just gonna, once again, same methods apply to this shape, to just about any shape. We're going to take this T, we're going to copy it, and we're going to bring it down along those converging lines, and it's going to end up being a little bit smaller, but that's going to create the back surface of this T shape. So I'm going to take this line, I'm going to copy it back here. Ooh, what happened there? Let's try that again. So copy that back there. I'm going to take this horizontal line, I'm going to copy that across here. And take this vertical line, bring it down here. Again, this line is going to end where this line's converging line goes back. So it's going to end right at that line. I'm going to copy this bottom horizontal. You guys probably get the idea. Now here's where it's a little bit different. So this line, it might be not as obvious, but basically this is all one line. So we're going to take this line and we're going to, just to give it that same depth, we're going to come across here and we're going to draw it right there. So if you think about it, we got this line going across there. So those two lines should be in line with each other. So now we're going to connect the back surface and the front surface. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit so it's less confusing. So like I said, let's now connect the front surface and the back surface. Alright, so there we've got the volume of the shape. I'm going to add a little bit of color just to make it pop a little bit more like the other two. So let's do that here. Alright, so there we go. We got our three quick examples there, pretty straightforward. And I think that should kind of relay some of the basic ideas behind one perspective drawing. So that wraps up the more informational part of the video, and I hope you guys were able to learn something from this. Like I said, this was more of a fundamentals video, but it's always good exercise. And just like with any sport, you have to learn those fundamentals before you can really start to master the game. So I'm going to end this video with a time-lapse drawing of a street view, and maybe you guys want to follow along and draw it yourself. And if you do draw this yourself, it'd be awesome if you could take a picture of it and put that on Instagram and then tag me in it. My Instagram handle is Ryan Evers Architecture, and you can find that link and links to everything else, including the tools that I used in this video, in the description box below. So with that, thanks for watching, and until next time.